It's so many things going on. What is going on? Are we at war? Is this a world war in Ukraine right now? Seeing that Russia is now openly stating that it is targeting, quote unquote, NATO mercenaries like the French, the Polish, and everybody else like that.
Well, Russia has actually been hitting these mercenaries for quite some time. The numbers have gone up and down. So if you recall, in March of 2020, on March 13th, the Russians hit the Ukrainian military base in Yavoriv, which is in western Ukraine, with some hypersonic missiles. And I remember at the time I was in contact with one of my buddies who's military intelligence, that he said that the Joint Staff, chairman of the Joint Staff, Mark Milley at that time, they were freaked out because they had no idea those missiles were inbound. They caught them completely unawares. That base at Yavoriv was a de facto NATO base. That's where NATO training took place. You had a lot of foreign mercenaries flowing in there. So a bunch of them were killed back then. Then over the ensuing, during the last 2 years, up and down, the number of these mercenaries, foreign mercs, have fluctuated and changed in quality and quantity. In 2022, you got what I call sort of the fanboy crowd, the Rambos, they've been, video gamers. Oh man, I'm gonna go play war. They got over there and found out, oh my God, they're shooting back. This ain't fun. And so a lot of them that went in 2022 got out, came back. It was also, the Ukrainians are pretty disorganized. But what we're seeing now over the last 2 or 3 months is a deliberate policy by NATO, taking uniformed soldiers, getting them out of their national uniforms, transitioning them. Let's call them transgender soldiers. That's what they are. They're like transgender nationals. They don't identify, or they identify as not French. Identify as not American. They identify as not German. But you got Americans, Germans, Poles, and French, and Brits who are going into Ukraine to provide critical skills that Ukraine no longer has because they've been killed or destroyed. And, Russia is going to keep the pace up. So I think the likelihood of the war spreading in Ukraine is actually pretty low because Ukraine's getting beat so bad. And Ukraine it's in the midst of domestic turmoil with President Zelensky increasingly isolated. You got General Zaluzhny carping at him. Zelensky's the leaking word that they're going to replace Zaluzhny with the intel chief, who, that'd be like putting your head chef in charge of the military. They might eat well, but that's about it. This guy Budanov, he's a ruthless intelligence chief, but he's not a good military tactician or strategist. And then on top of it, you got the mayor Klitschko, the heavyweight boxer who, I guess proof of his brain injury that he went into politics. He is out calling Zelensky a dictator today. So it's a mess, dude. Just a mess.
Well, do you think those strikes on the market were in response, like NATO and the U.S. lashing out at Russia for taking out those French and Western soldiers?
No, I think this is part of a deliberate strategy to try to kill civilians in the belief that if you kill enough civilians on the Russian side, it will say, hey, Vladimir Putin, you can't protect your civilians. Therefore, they're going to rise up and throw out Vladimir Putin. It's crazy. It's really not based on history. But, I started thinking about this. And one of the differences between, let's call it the old Soviet military doctrine and U.S., British, the Western Allies military doctrine is the Western Allies put a lot of stock in killing civilians. And let's go back to World War II. The Germans started the Battle of Britain and the bombing of some civilian areas sort of by accident. They thought they were bombing a factory, and the bomb dropped into a populated area in London. And then in response to that, Churchill ordered his bombers to go bomb Berlin, which they did. And then the tit for tat was on. And I was saying, gee, I wonder how many Brits died in the Battle of Britain. I looked that up, and the numbers are about 70,000, 75,000. A lot of people, not trying to minimize it. But then I looked up how many German civilians did the Allies kill with their bombing campaigns? Almost 1 million. Oh. So just, so what we're looking at is, and it's like what's going on in Israel and Gaza. Okay, Hamas, let's say Hamas killed all the 1,200. They didn't, but let's just, for sake of argument, that the Hamas killed 1,200 Israelis. Israelis are now killed 30,000 Palestinians and at least 12,000 women and children. It's disproportionate. And then you go through World War II. United States killed killed massive numbers of Japanese civilians in the bombings of the cities in Japan. And again, killing these civilians doesn't stop the war, doesn't weaken the enemy, and many times it makes the enemy more resolute in fighting back.